Hello there and welcome to this episode 30 of the Wellbeing Matters podcast with me, Gareth Boot.
And me, Sue Cowlishaw.
Episode 30, Sue.
And I'm glad you're not videoing them anymore.
Well, we're not going to video them, so straight off the bat, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will not see us. You will see a little graphic with some squiggly lines on. We just found that doing the videos was starting to put a bit too much pressure on production.
Yeah, and I was too, het up on what I look like. So go put some makeup on and do my hair and make sure I sat on the right side and everything. It was quite traumatic.
The thing is, when you take on something new, and we are relatively new to podcasting. I mean, I've been creating podcasts now for about 12 months, maybe longer. And you're testing and trying things all the time. You're experimenting. The problem with doing that sometimes is you get into a trap that there's not really a proper return on investment of your time. So for us, when we sit down with a microphone like this, what's it taking us a minute to set up?
Yeah.
Press a button, start going. When we have to worry about putting a camera in, it then creates almost like an occasion. So we have to then move the tables about upstairs and do
more, more jobs.
It was more jobs, and at the end of it, you lose the flow. So really what we're trying to get with these podcasts, and I always wanted from them, was more of a kind of casual talk. Us talking about something that the readers would we believe, find interesting.
Readers? Listeners?
Listeners. Because I've just been blogging and I've got readers on my mind. So I thought we'd talk about today was the permission to change, the permission to give something up. Because this is an interesting... This came up in a conversation we've had recently about me and my diet. Because it wasn't that long ago, actually. In fact, when was it? I've got my computer in front of me, so I can tell you. You can obviously see if we're online. I think we talked about something way back in the... We talked about Veganuary.
In January?
Well, actually, it was in January. It was the 8th of January. That was our episode 16. We talked about Veganuary, and that was our talk into kind of vegan living and plant-based food.
Is that the one nobody listened to?
Actually, still not many people listen to it. No, it was probably one of the worst. So that's why this title won't include that. But we are going to mention it. So, bear in mind, if I know some people are getting a bit funny, but it's not what you think about is this. We're not going to talk specifically about the vegan food. We're just going to talk about my relationship at the moment to that kind of world of vegan eating, because there's been some changes, I think, in our diet recently, which would be remiss of us not to mention to people, because I don't want people to have the illusion that we've talked about veganuary, we talk about plant-based, and I think we have to be always open and honest on these podcasts about when we're changing, what we're experimenting with. Because if we were to say now that we were vegan, that would be a bit of a lie.
But we've never said that.
I know that, but people assumed it. So
yeah, people call us vegans.
What we ended up doing was we experimented with eating less meat.
We didn't eat any.
Well, exactly. But we started off by eating less. Then we eventually went to eating nothing. And then over the course of the last few months, we've changed a little bit of our diet. We're not eating meat again yet, but there are some other things coming. So this is not solely about that, but part of what we are talking about is that, because we're talking about the permission to change. What I think is interesting, Sue, and I want your views on this, is I think sometimes we can fall foul of taking something on, maybe a project or a new lifestyle choice, and we're so vocal about it at first, because you tend to be, don't you? When you take on something new, it's the big deal to you.
Yeah, but it's not a good idea.
And then what tends to happen is, after a period of time, you maybe interest in it wanes, or it's not quite for you. But because you're heavily invested in telling people that you were doing this, you kind of almost, so what I'm looking for, belligerent.
But we never really did that. We were very low key, and we didn't kind of mention it very much.
Well, this is, again, I'm not talking specifically about vegan food here. Let's not get into that right now. We're going to come back to that. I'm talking about when we've taken things on before that we've tried, and generally people. So, for instance, if you take on, let's say you take on an idea that you are going to simplify your living. We talked about that last week, I think, didn't we? Keeping it simple. Well, you take on an idea to simplify your household. You tell everybody how good it is. You've read some stuff. You're really excited. But then you start working towards doing that. And then you feel it's not just maybe quite for you, or the way you're going to do it's different to what you first thought.
So have you got an example of something like that you've done?
I think... I'm going to come straight back to talking about vegans.
Or anything else?
Yeah, I would think I've done that before certainly on business fronts, especially relating to doing stuff on social media, saying I would do something every day. Yeah. So at the moment on my website, I am blogging every day. And at the time, it seemed like a really good idea to blog every day. It was simple. The idea was, could I create a flow in my life, could I create a habit of creating some kind of written content every day, putting that into a blog post, and then doing that every day. And when I first took it on, which was a little while ago now, actually, it's been going for 2 or 3 months, it was relatively straightforward. But then over the period of time, it started to feel less and less like something I wanted to do.
Well, my question here is, why did you decide that in the first place? What was your reason?
I wanted to create a structure. I get the sense that with where my career is going and what I'm focusing on, the ability to create written content is very, very important.
But why every day?
Because every day creates that kind of routine. So it's not something I'm doing because all of a sudden the kind of mood texts me, oh, I fancy writing right now. I'm turning it from being something I do when I fancy doing it into something I do on a daily basis because I discipline myself to do it.
And how long did you set out to do this for?
I said initially I'd do 30 days.
Right.
I did 30 days, and then I knocked it down to doing it 3 times a week instead of every day. And this is never on a weekend, by the way. It's only 5 days, Monday to Friday. And then last week I went back to saying I'll do it every day, and then it just has really stuck. And I realised what's holding me in this place of keeping doing that is a bit of ego, really. And I'm kind of alluding to the fact that most people go into things with the best intentions. It doesn't work maybe as they want it to work, and instead of being flexible and looking at what solutions there could be, you kind of keep going on in this determined way because you feel that if you change tack or change direction, then somehow you're going to lose face.
Yeah, it just reminded me of tree pose, strong roots and flexible branches.
Oh, you love to bring it back to yoga, don't you, Susan?
Well, the wind changes. The seasons change, everything changes. I suppose if you go into something and you're a little bit adamant about it, a little bit, what's the word?
Adamant.
If you're very vocal, what's the word? Like
then you'd be
like a terrorist.
What do you mean like a terrorist?
Like what they're called, those people.
Extremist.
If you go into it with an extreme view that this is the way I'm going to do it, this is the best way, there is no other way, then you're going to feel a bit daft if you want to change your mind. So perhaps kind of like just doing something a little bit quieter or thinking about it more before you start it as to why you're doing that.
Well, I think that's an interesting point and one we should explore because I have to say, we will take this back now to talking about our plant-based living. I've struggled with it in the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, we will be coming up to 2 years, not completely 2 years, but we started in October.
So we're not far off it.
2018, and we did an experiment. We said we were, it was my idea, and I wanted to go plant-based because I was becoming uncomfortable about taking part in anything to do with animals. It didn't feel right to me to be using or exploiting, or whatever word you want to call it, for our own good to the extent we were. And so I started to feel uncomfortable about that. And when I voiced it to you, we decided we would be plant-based in the house, but if you went out with your kids or you went out somewhere else, you would basically eat what you wanted. That was the idea. So I was a little bit more into it than you were because my reasons were different. Because my secondary reason was health. I'd read such a lot, and I wanted to have a go. I wanted to experiment over a period of time and see, because I need a lot of energy. I teach a lot of yoga. I go to the gym. I like to walk up big hills. I do need a lot of energy. And this was the thing that came out when I read about plant-based, is the extra energy you got. So that was like a secondary reason for me. But yeah, so you came along with me, and I don't know if you wanted to, but you did.
Well, you talk about primary and secondary reasons there. My primary reason was health. At the time, if you remember, I'd gone into running about a month beforehand when I started this. And I wanted to experiment with the idea of would a dramatic change in diet help me with some of the challenges I faced. I wasn't particularly fit at that time, and I felt that I wasn't getting any fitter despite the fact
you did have some inflammation as well.
Yeah, I had a lot of aches and pains in knees. So when I read some of the stuff that you were talking about and you were showing me, I thought it was interesting to look at it and say, well, why don't I give this a go for a period of time? So we went into it with different reasons. I didn't really have any kind of strong opinion of animal welfare to start with. Then all of a sudden I started to get a bit more information that you were sharing with me, and I thought, well, actually, I did become aware of animal welfare, and it was important to me. I thought, some of the meat, and especially the dairy we produce, is probably produced in a way that I don't like. So that was my reason for going into it. And that held for about 12 months. I've enjoyed the physical side of it, getting fitter. And there certainly has been a massive difference in my fitness. I don't think anybody can deny that knows me. But recently I found myself just really starting to question why I am still continuing to eat plant-based. And it was interesting because I realised the reason I'm not eating meat is because of you.
Yeah, you said that, didn't you? So when did this start to appear?
I would have said it would started sometime in about March or April. I started to feel that I was missing something in my diet. I didn't feel evangelical enough about the concept of plant-based and veganism. It wasn't something I really bothered myself about. It's something I did, but I didn't tell many people. You were much more much more of a vocal person around it. You would write blogs on your Facebook about it. You'd talk to your friends about it. For me, it was just something I almost kind of did in a quiet way. Mm. But clearly, because we had a couple and because clearly we interact with people as a couple, we both got perceived in this kind of, we go to people's houses and say things like, oh, we've got some vegan food for you. I think, okay, that's lovely, but, that's not exactly how we eat. And I started to get this thing again, which came back up for me, and it used to be there, which is I can't align myself with vegans and the concept. The word vegan I don't like. I never did like it. And maybe that's an old pattern I'm running inside. Maybe that's an old perception. But I think I have an inbred, or certainly a learned belief and understanding of what a vegan is. And I didn't like them. Not that they're horrible people. I just didn't like the way they went about pushing their thing. That was a little bit too much. So over the course of this year, I have noticed myself, and you'd have to be in on this too, I've noticed myself, we gave ourselves permission to eat a little bit of fish. So we did tend to have, we'd have maybe a seafood pizza or a seafood risotto. We started to eat seafood.
Yeah, a few prawns and
a few prawns. And I was kind of okay with that. I enjoyed that. And then we had a couple of times when we started to have a bit of fish, as in a proper fish fillet, rather than mollusks and mollusks.
Mollusks are there things in
shellfish.
Shells.
So because we started off with shellfish, and I found myself feeling slightly better in two ways. One is I felt I had a lot more freedom with the choice to give myself the permission to eat some fish. I felt I had more freedom when I went out. I had the freedom of choice around food that I didn't have when I was completely plant-based. Because even if you go plant-based and you choose to go, and we will use that word, vegan, then there's very few places you can actually have a vegan anything. It's not truly vegan. There's a lot of vegetarian. Every restaurant will have a vegetarian option, obviously, but unless you go to a steakhouse, even they have a vegetarian option. So I started to feel that I was not comfortable anymore, not eating the meat. I don't know why I'm doing it, and that started in about March or April.
But you came to me. It was only like a week ago, and you said, "I realised the only reason I'm not eating meat is because of you."
That's it.
If you weren't here, I'd be eating.
I'd be eating meat. It's as simple as that. I almost kind of feel like I'm not saying I feel like I'm missing out. I just feel restricted, and I don't like the restriction it gives me. I'm not saying for a minute. I think I've seen the benefits. Now I don't know whether my fitness and my lack of inflammation and my lack of pains and aches. I mean, currently I'm on a run streak of about 110 days, and although I don't go hell for leather every day, I'm out every day, and I've managed to maintain that despite the fact we've done a couple of very long walks. I've done some very quick runs, by my standards anyway, quick. I haven't had any aches and pains. Now, is that down to the fact I'm fitter now, or is it down to the diet? So my concern is if I did start to go back to eating animal protein other than fish, then how would that start to affect that? So yes, I think if it wasn't for you, I would be back to eating meat. So what I wanted to talk about in this podcast was how many times
Can we make
people...
it clear I don't make you? I don't force you.
It's not that you don't force me. This is more about... We have looked at things over the time since we've kind of gone plant-based. We've even considered looking at doing some plant-based food and selling that. We a lot of things have kind of been semi-emotionally bought into with this plant-based. That we could have gone down a path where we end up having a plant-based takeaway and a vegan takeaway, and one of the owners is eating meat. Which I have to be clear, I'm not eating meat yet. I haven't eaten meat yet. But I am taking on more fish. I think we used to average fish about once a month. Now it's once a week.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of weeks ago, just because we did some picnicking and because of the way that the food we bought from Asda fell out and it worked, we ended up having fish about 3 days times that week. And that week I did start to feel much more comfortable with that. I didn't feel like some kind of leper, which I did get a sense I was feeling. It was only, you've not put me under this pressure. Nobody else has really. It's just something I'm aware of. So I think being able to give yourself permission to review what you've done, look at it again, and then come up with potentially another solution to that is important. So I'm at the stage now and I'm still investigating what I'm feeling about this, which starts to sound a little bit kind of, a bit way out there, doesn't it?
So when you thought about it, was that the only thing that came up? You felt restricted? Because don't forget, at this moment in time, we haven't been into a restaurant since March because they haven't been open for a start off. So where did you feel the restriction? Which part of your day or your week did you feel restricted?
I'll tell you what it feels like. I feel like this last 12 months, I've made a lot of changes. I mean, I remember when I first started running, you thought, this won't last.
Oh.
Did you not think that?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you didn't think it would hold up. And I've got to be honest, at the time, I was unsure. I had confidence that I could keep going forward. And I realised that there's so many things in the last couple of years that I don't do anymore. That I'm kind of feeling like, I'll do all these things, and I've tried to. I feel I'm a much calmer character. I'm a lot more focused. I'm a lot more disciplined, and it just felt as though, do you know what? I don't want to have the added restriction of something else I don't do, which is not eating meat.
I understand what you mean, because it was interesting the other day. I saw a sign and it said, when the restaurant started opening, and it said grill and bar, and I thought, I won't be going there then. And then you think of your friends. We don't have many, we have some. I think of my family. We tend to get left out a little bit more not drinking. So to not eat the same as everybody else as well does put us a little bit in a little bit of a group of our own. The thing is, people that really care about you, they don't mind, and you feel quite comfortable around them because they just accept it. But when you go out and about and a little bit further afield, it's a tricky one. And you also have this emotional. I've had like thinking about Sunday lunch, Sunday roasts. I had that thought the other day. Like, we never really had one anyway. Nobody ever invites us for one. We never go out for one. But all of a sudden it felt that it was like the big thing that you missed and really wanted.
Well, you talked there about bar and grill, and I would think it would be very unusual for me now. In fact, I would never say impossible, because that sets you up for a massive failure if you want it to. And I don't think you should ever say never, because never's a long time. I would find it very strange if I contemplated or drifted back into drinking. I don't think that's a possibility I even contemplate, because I know for me, I've tried it too many times to go back to normal drinking over the years, especially in the 90s, to try to regulate that, to know that that's not something I can do. So I'm very clear on that. There is reasons I don't drink, and there will be reasons why I don't drink now, and they'll still apply in another 5, 10. As long as I live, I will not be able to go back and regulate my drinking. There are just some people that can't do that. And anybody listening to this that thinks they can, I can certainly assure you can't. And no matter how many times you try to prove me wrong, you will find yourself falling over that big problem, which is some people simply cannot drink alcohol comfortably or sensibly, and those people should not do it at all. And it's very sad to see somebody continue to try to prove that wrong, because it becomes the horrible squirrel trap they get caught into, of stopping, staying sober for a bit, then drinking again. So I'm very comfortable with the concept I don't drink, and I have no problem in telling people I don't drink. I never use the word alcoholic. I don't like that term. I think it's very derogatory. I think it doesn't serve you to class yourself as that. So I'm clear with that. Now, the thing with the meat, there's no real negative benefit for me eating it. I'm not going to, if I ate a steak tomorrow, I won't wake up the next day with a headache, find out I crashed my car, or I've been arrested for being drunk in charge of a side of beef. It wouldn't happen. So I'm starting to realise that for me, I'm missing something around that concept of consuming meat. And I've put myself on a path which says, I do this. And I've now got to sit back and consider what the next move is for me. I've not jumped into this. I've not just had an idea one day, it's Monday morning, I think I should eat some steak, and by Monday lunchtime I'm eating a piece of fillet. That's not where I'm at with this. I think I've got the discipline and the ability to step back and look at this from all angles, because I'm interested to why it's come up. And one of the things I wanted to do more on these podcasts and through Better 27 is talk about these real life things that happen. Because it can look really simple to follow a lifestyle till you follow it, then things happen. We're nearly 2 years down the line and this is coming up now.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Why do you think it's come up now?
I think there's a lot happening for us at the moment. We've had a very difficult time with coronavirus in this country. I think we've navigated it as well as we could have done. I think we've kind of in some ways thrived through it. Which I'm always reluctant to say that, because there are people that have struggled a great deal and people have lost life. So it's not something I want to say, I've loved lockdown, it's been great, because I don't want to sound like I'm sounding like I'm benefited from what has been a very traumatic situation for some people. But I think over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've also started to focus more on this business, Better 24/7. There's a lot more kind of pressure coming with that. We have to turn this now into a sustainable business. We have got a bit of a launch date for it to go properly live all on the 19th of July. Mm-hmm. And although we've had this podcast going for a while and there is social media platforms, we've not populated them apart from the podcast. And I realise now that some of me is starting to feel some pressure around that. And I'm going back into a time thinking I need to be more effective. And I don't feel as effective as I felt 5 years ago when I ran the last business I ran. And I think, why am I not feeling effective? And there's a bit of me putting these two things together, right? You're not quite just as, how you used to be. You don't feel quite as switched on sometimes. And there's kind of, I've got to be careful how I say this without trying to sound silly. I'm quite an harsh character, and I'm quite a focused character, and I used to be. And I don't feel as focused and as hard as I used to be. I don't feel that kind of side of me is there anymore. Not to the extent it was. And I feel like in some way, shape, or form, that's going to affect what we do with Better 24/7. I don't feel quite as... do you know what I mean? I can't explain it. Let me see if I can articulate this better, because this is poor.
But no offence, you've been like this for a few years before you stopped eating meat.
No.
You lost your focus.
I'm tired of giving stuff up, because everything I gave up I enjoyed. So all this stuff I've done over the years and all these things I've done have been things I really enjoyed. And I mean, a lot of my lifestyle in the past was pretty poor at times. I had some very poor practices, some practices which quite honestly weren't right. But I enjoyed all of them. So I can't look back at my time drinking, or maybe even in my days of womanizing and stuff like this, where I said, they were horrible times and I'm really glad they're not there anymore. Actually, there were some bad times, but also good times. And I think I find it interesting now that I'm getting to a stage where I just don't feel at the moment like I want to be tied into something else I've given. Oh, you've given up this, now you're giving up eating meat. It's not sitting well with me. And it's starting to make me feel uncomfortable in a way that I don't know why. I mean, all I'm asking to do is I'm eating, bits of cabbage.
So why haven't you gone out and eaten any meat?
Because I don't want to jump into this. I think you've got to be careful when these things come up that you properly look at all the facts. What do you gain by not doing it? What do you gain by going back to do it? Why is it coming up? Is it a flash in the pan? Is it just to do with the moment? Because if you're not careful, you can react to things based on a feeling you get at the time, which could come up from a number of reasons. Is it at the moment I'm just not feeling 100%? Am I doing too much exercise and I'm feeling tired? It's been a long time since we've had a proper break or a holiday. Is that affecting me thinking? What I've become really good at, I think, in the last 12 to 18 months is stepping back and analysing more. I've become much more analytical without jumping in and making decisions based on emotion. Because making emotional decisions are very, very bad, especially if you're angry. I'm angry, you make a decision, and that can be a very wrong decision. You should always sleep on it. So although I've slept a long time since I've started exercise, I'm still mulling over what it means. Because for me now, I want to give myself the permission and be comfortable with giving myself that permission to say, okay, let's assume you do want to eat some meat. That's perfectly fine. Without then all of a sudden this big spectre of doom coming over me and saying, I told you. Because I'm also aware that the ego works in a couple of ways. The ego sometimes makes you do things that look like you're doing it for the right reasons, then batters you afterwards. It's like now you're coming up to how many, 300 and how many days now without a drink?
355.
So you've almost done a year. Now imagine now if you had a drink now.
That's what I dreamt last night, that I had a drink.
How did it feel?
Not pleasant, because in my dream I had 2 weeks before I got to a year. And I had this glass of wine and I drank it. And I thought, don't have any more, nobody will know. Just forget about it was just a mistake. But I was battling to not have another drink. I just had one because I thought I could get away with one. It was strange. It wasn't nice. Dreams
come up like that. But what that dream highlights is exactly what I'm talking about, where if you then go off based on the decision of I'm going to have a drink, and let's say you did have a drink in real life, you'd feel terrible you didn't a year. But yet no one set you a target and said you've got to do a year. You've set that
Only
target.
Me. Well, and I didn't even set that target at the beginning. I set a target for a month, and then 2 months, then 6 months, and then I got to 6 months and think, a year.
But now you could give yourself permission to have an odd glass of wine. There's no reason why you can't, because you don't have the same, in my view, and again, you could prove this wrong, you don't come across to me as somebody who has got an element of a drink problem that I had.
I don't think I had a drink problem like you had, but I at times I felt that I wanted to give it up, but didn't think I could.
Right. Okay.
So that became an issue, feeling like I wanted to stop drinking, but I couldn't. So that was a bit of an issue when I look back. Okay,
so I suppose me with the meat thing, I want to just make sure this is not a decision I'm making based on, just not feeling 100% at the moment. There's a lot of frustration around at the moment. I feel frustrated. We've got a lot to do. I'm completely and utterly pissed off with the likes of social media, because we've got, what it appears to me at the moment is, as far as this company Better 24/7 is concerned, we've got a huge mountain to climb. And in order to climb that mountain, we're going to have to use aspects of social media, which I don't agree with. I've become more and more adamant about how poor social media is for us. I mean, I think Facebook is just an absolute joke as to what it's doing, how it's behaving, and we're allowing him to. Zuckerberg and his cronies.
But there are other platforms nowadays,
no, but not to the extent that. The reason people use Facebook is because everyone's on Facebook, everyone understands it.
But it won't be like that forever.
Well, no, but it's like that now. And we're sat here with very few followers. Well, we've got no followers on the Facebook page because we've not really launched it yet, apart from a couple of people that have found it that know us. And now we've got to get to a stage where, in order for us to make this work, we have to grow an audience, create a product, get some of that audience to buy that product, and keep that system going to allow us not to have to face the fact that it didn't work out and we have to start something else. So it's a huge task in front of us. And I think with that, there's a lot of frustration, because there is a bit of me thinking, go back to what you used to do, Gareth. I found the last few weeks challenging, because I have to say that my belief in human behaviour has been tested over this coronavirus.
So is it the meat that you're missing, or is it something else?
I don't know. That's the thing. It could be what the meat represents.
Does it represent your past? Does it represent a time you were different?
I don't know. All I'm saying is I'm giving myself permission to contemplate this now. and look at what this might look like for me in the next few weeks.
But you did actually think of eating some chicken the other day, and you got there was a little bit of a barrier in your way, wasn't there, love?
Well, barrier where I couldn't buy chicken from chicken shop. Yeah, I went to buy some chicken wings. There's a place in Huddersfield called Marsden's. They make great chicken wings, and I thought I was in Huddersfield.
You were like, I'm going for some chicken wings.
I'm off for some chicken wings, and when I got there, you couldn't order them because you had to order it from an app, and I couldn't, and I didn't have time. And so in some ways, I always take those signs. Is this me? Is this me being kind of pushed off track? Is this me being guided by some kind of, I don't know, higher power?
Higher power.
I'm not going to stick myself in a bracket that says I'm only going to do this and that, so I'm going to live forever. It doesn't make sense to do that. And I don't like where I've got to with my mindset around the plant-based stuff.
Sorry. Because I studied Ayurveda, which is a science of life, which is kind of like a Sanskrit science. It's the sister science of yoga. We look at different body types and how some people thrive on certain foods, some people get inflamed, some people get overweight. Everybody's different. They've all got different constitutions. And we believe that not everybody will thrive on a plant-based diet. Not everybody will. So it's up to you really to find out what suits you. I don't ever advocate going to eat cheap meat, loads of it. Never. I don't see the point in that. But if you feel that, or if anybody feels the need to bring in a little bit of animal protein, well, you're going to have to look at that. Because I find occasionally when I would like some, it's just like a throwback. It's like a memory that comes and it just comes and goes. But I really don't believe everybody thrives on a plant-based diet. I don't think everybody should eat loads of meat, by the way.
When we take something on and we attach ourselves to it and it becomes part of our kind of personality, or it becomes part of what people know us for, it's very difficult for people to stop doing that. And I think that if people are doing that on a regular basis, you lead yourself to living a life which is, you feel like you're lying to yourself to start with, because it's nearly not what you want to be doing, and you're lying to others by making them believe that you're actually enjoying this way of living. Now there was a bit of me. We went out on the weekend. We went to your sister's for a burger and things like that, and I thought, maybe I could try a bit of sausage here or something, or maybe a burger. And then I realised that the only thing that stopped me doing that was I thought, after all this stick they've given us for eating no plants.
Yeah, they have.
And now I'm going to start eating meat. I think it's almost like they're going to say, nah, I told you so.
Nah.
The problem is sometimes you've got to risk that, nah, I told you so. Because all you're doing otherwise is putting yourself in a position which is you're not flexible, you're not really doing what you want to do. What I've realised in the last few months is that eating healthy is very important. The biggest impact to my health has not been stopping eating meat. It has had a big impact. I have to say it's made me feel better. In some ways, there's been some positives. The biggest change in my diet has been not eating processed food. Some of which was processed meat, by the way, because we used to eat a lot of pepperami and a lot of salami and things like that, and boiled ham. But also, I've seen the benefits of eating more vegetables and not eating sugar and not eating processed food like that. Now, I still do eat some sugar. It's not like I'm never eating any sugar. I'm never, walking this weekend and managed to start my walk. My breakfast of choice was 2 vanilla slices.
2 vanilla slices.
But even that, that in itself is going back to having dairy. There's eggs in that, and there's butter, and there's milk in that. So I think you have to look at having a lifestyle that kind of fits with how you're feeling. Otherwise, it's taking up a lot of my focus at the moment, this thinking, why am I changing? What's going on? I don't like it because it's making me less focused on other things. We talked about me blogging. I'm blogging on my own website for reasons I'm not sure why I'm doing it. I know why I'm doing it because it's supposed to teach me and give me a discipline. But the other side of it is, hang on a minute here, you're trying to grow better 24/7. That's going to happen from the 19th of July. So you're now going to have to invest time in building that, which is going to be significant, and also keep blogging for maybe 20, 30 people that read it. And I'm not sure anymore I'm comfortable. Well, it's not I'm not sure anymore. I'm not comfortable anymore doing stuff for free. I think it's something people have got used to the point, and this is where I do go back to Facebook and where I think the problem is on that platform, is if you go back 12 or 18 months, 2 years, you paid on Facebook for advertising to be shown to people. It's getting to a stage now, I know through my analytics and what I look at, that actually you've got to pay people to even see your stuff. Not an advert, see your stuff. And it's just become this huge money-making machine as Facebook that we have all bought into. And if you're a business owner, you've bought into it probably at a higher level, especially if you're using adverts. It's like, I liken it to a drug dealer, right? They give you a few, strips or whatever you give, a few bags of your cocaine or your drug of choice, and you get it cheap and you get it for free and it works. And then all of a sudden when you're hooked on it, then they put the price up and the quality goes down. And I just feel now that I can't focus on doing Better 24/7 effectively while I'm still trying to blog every day for myself. But a bit of me says, hang on, you said you're going to blog every day. But yeah, if that website disappeared off the face of the earth tomorrow, if garethboot.com disappeared, what's happened there? Maybe 20 or 30 people don't see the content. No, I don't take it wrong, don't I? Because some of those 20 or 30 people might be listening to this. I don't take the fact you listen to my stuff lightly. I don't take it lightly, the fact that people consume and enjoy and get some value from my content. But the problem is now is I'm so what I talk about in my work, which I'll say is kind of mindset and personal development, is so close to Better 24/7. It's like we're diluting what we could do for this. It's like you now, you've grown up quite a substantial little business around your yoga in lockdown. So you're in the same position where you've got the choice, now hang on, how do you then take some of that effort out of that and put it into Better 24/7? And the reality is you can't too much. You've got to keep doing that. So I think what's come up recently is there's things that I'm questioning, why am I doing them and what's the purpose? What's the return on me doing that from a health perspective or a time perspective or a financial perspective? Now, if I thought that blogging every day on garethboot.com would earn me £1,000 a month extra, well, that would be interesting to look at, but it doesn't. It doesn't earn me anything. It maybe gets me a little bit more kind of reach, and maybe I do all right if you search me in Google a little bit, all things will come up about me. But is that really worth the effort and the stress of sitting down every morning trying to write something, which is difficult? The same with not eating the meat. Is it worth the stress of me feeling this way to stick on and push out and say, you know what, I'm staying plant-based? And that's I'm unsure about. I'm very unsure about. And I think a lot of people, if they were to be given a choice to say, look, you can change your lifestyle dramatically, you can change your food, and you can eat better, and you can still eat some meat, and you can still have a bit of dairy, and you can do all this. I agree with you. I would never see myself going back and eating the food I used to eat, or some of the food I used to eat. I can't see a purpose in my life anymore for a spam sandwich, because I know what goes into spam. But can I see me in the future having a roast chicken dinner, or a steak, or some form of roast lamb? That seems to me more probable than me sat there having a breakfast sandwich from local butty shop.
You see, for me, when I think about, one of my favourite meats to eat was pork, with crackling and pork belly. But when I've been out and about, pigs are my favourite animals. I think they're fantastic. So I just feel that, hang on a minute, I love pigs. I'd have some pigs myself if I could. And then I come home and put one on my plate. It don't feel, to me, that don't feel right.
And herein lies exactly what I've said, because I don't care. And I don't mean that in a horrible way. I believe that for many, that's what drives you, the animal welfare. What I don't believe is right is that you see some of these farms where there's thousands of pigs into a very small, and they're treated badly and they've got bad conditions.
Well, I can't imagine anybody agreeing with that. We're talking about intensive farming, aren't we? Factory farming.
Well, we're talking about intensive
mass
anything.
farming, these super farms.
But we take it away from not just the meat and the farm element. Think about the intensive farming of human beings when we put them into factories to create cheap food for cheap clothing for ourselves.
I don't like that neither.
No, exactly. Neither do I. So it's interesting for me to talk about this, because I want the listeners to understand. You can look at something and look at a lifestyle and think it looks perfect. Until you start to develop into it, it might not just be for you. Now, as I said, at the moment I have eaten fish, you've eaten fish. I would say that we are 90% plant-based at the moment. And the 10% that's not plant-based will be a small amount of dairy, unintentionally, because if we do have something that's got it, maybe if we had something that had a little bit of cheese on it, like a pizza, which we have done as well. And then the rest would be fish. So it's predominantly fish that we're having, and more so.
Yeah, I understand what you mean about the restrictions, because when we're at home, it's like if I make a pizza, it's completely vegan. But if you go out and they don't have one, and you're out with people, and it's like, oh, go on then, I'll have a pizza with cheese on it. And you do feel a little bit, well, I don't feel too bad, because I think I'm doing my best here. That's it, I'm doing my best.
Motivation for something can wane. So then you've got to have a system behind that to make sure you continue. What I'm playing with at the moment, experimenting with these, is just seeing how long this feeling goes on for. Because I've got enough willpower to bat this off for a period of time, certainly. What I'm aware of is that willpower and that energy to bat it off, I could be using on something else. And I'm becoming a little bit unfocused on some of the work front things, because this is constantly coming up. I believe that, we're talking, after this podcast, we're going to be talking about the next stage of Better 27, which is creating a course, which we've kind of said is what this is going to become going forward, certainly for a period of time. We want a course that helps people to improve their lifestyle. And I have to fight that as well, because I have got to say, having seen how some people have behaved during lockdown in Wakefield, having looked at some of the people that I see walking around in Wakefield, it would seem some people do not have any interest whatsoever in improving their lifestyle. They're happy to be sick, which I think is ridiculous. But that's only my opinion, and I've got to respect other people's opinions that don't believe that. They're okay to be okay. So we're left in a situation now where, in order for us to move forward better 24/7, I need complete focus on that. That's what's coming up for me this last few days. Is I cannot be continuing to focus on another project, which is my mentoring, coursework, blogging, because it's taking away focus. And this feeling of why the meat thing's coming up, it's taking me focus. It takes me focus, especially around meal times. Because tonight we're having peanut soup, which I love peanut soup. So tonight there'll be no issue with it. I like my peanut soup. But every now and again it comes up. Oh, here we go again.
Here we go again. Plants. Oh, what we have in plants.
Well, because you have to honour your own feelings on it, but you honour your own feelings based on the reality, not the kind of perceived reality. Let me tell you about your perceived reality of drinking as opposed to the reality of you drinking, right? Your perceived reality is it'd be nice to go out and have an odd glass of wine, and that would be lovely. But you may be able to do that. But I know what your drinking habits were like before, and it was never just a glass of wine. You'd end up having a bottle. So you didn't drink every night, but when you did drink, you drank too much. So your perceived reality is I'll have that one glass of wine and it'll be lovely, because I know that feeling.
No, I'm not sure if I can.
Right, but that's in your own mind, that's the perception of the drink will make you feel good. And in some way I'm hoping that if I had some meat, would that then give me the kind of, it makes me feel less of a bloke that I can't eat meat. That's what it comes down to.
Interesting.
I've got to a stage now where, do you know what? I used to be a right hard fucking nut. I used to have the mindset and the focus and the vision, and I was quite an aggressive character. And not a nasty character, but I could get stuff done. And I feel now, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I feel just like a bit of a wuss. I'm not eating meat. I don't drink. What are you doing, Gareth?
No womanising anymore.
No. Not that often anyway. No, but so there's a bit of that in me. Now I'm thinking, hang on a minute here. I can't do some of the stuff I did. Now, is it I'm 5 years older? It's 5 years down the line. Am I getting older? Is it this? I'm nearly 50. Maybe some of the stuff, maybe the kind of venom you had. It's just not there. The venom isn't there anymore that I used to have, and I want the venom back. Because it wasn't like I was nasty, but I had this ability to be very good for a short period of time, very focused, and I can still do it to some degree, but not reliably as I used to be able to.
But all you have to do is, you went into plant-based to see how you would react, how your body was. You can go back, you can go and try eating some meat and see if that makes a difference. You can try it and see if it makes a difference.
You can, but in order to do that in a comfortable way, you've got to give yourself permission, is what I'm saying. So I'm kind of what I'm alluding to in all this is I've given myself permission now in my own mind to say, if it feels right to do it in an appropriate place and time, then I'm happy to try some meat again. Because I no longer want to ever hear the word or mention around me vegan. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good for me to have that label. Now, some people are very happy with that label, and that's and you know, this is not judgment. This is about people. We're creating something at the moment which is very interesting to me in the world. We're creating this world where if you don't agree with a certain standpoint, you're vilified. And this has come out recently with a lot of they call it the woke movement.
I think we're all. I think we're all given labels. We're all labelled as something.
But the problem with that is, if you don't agree with something, you're labelled with the complete opposite,
else,
which may not be true.
But labelling just puts people in a box.
But people are wanting to put you in a box. So recently, there's been a lot of this stuff around. The Black Lives Matter thing has been a big deal. We all know that. This guy, George Floyd, and everything that's created. It's been interesting to watch that play out, you know, to the point now that we're saying we should change names of these country, the statues taken down, change the name of this. And I'm reluctant to get involved in that conversation because you can't win. You can't win. Your opinion has got every chance of causing you more trouble than saying nothing. And then people say, you can't say nothing. Well, what do I say? Well, if I don't agree with that idea of changing names of things, what if I don't agree with that? Well, then you're clearly this. Well, no, it's not clearly that. It's not as clear and black and white as it's made out to be. So these labels we've got and the way that we are allowing ourselves to be controlled and manipulated by people that have a decision at one point and have changed the decision, and then somehow the past still remains there and you can't erase it, you can't expunge it. There's no road to redemption. So somebody who went out and behaved and did something maybe in the 70s or 80s, which was acceptable back then, is now getting beat up for it now. You know, we're taking programs off because of things that were said in a different time and place. And I think, what's going on? And I'm a little bit like that now with my viewpoints on this. I don't want to turn back into being this stereotypical misogynistic bloke. I don't think I ever was that, to be fair. You're smiling. I wasn't, but I had a lot of responsibility for people, and I couldn't be in a position where I allowed myself not to be completely and utterly 100% focused and determined that my way was right, because I didn't have the choice to look at the other way. So I had to make decisions running a business that were based on, this is what I believe, I genuinely think this is the right way to go, and I have to be very dogmatic about making it happen that way. I didn't have the luxury of hindsight and 20/20 vision. So with the meat thing now, having the permission to experiment and change and look, I think is important for me. And I'm hoping if you find yourself listening to this podcast and you are tied in with something that you may be doing, that you've done for a while because at the time when you took it on it felt right, but now it feels wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying it's wrong now.
Like there's nothing, a saying.
What's that? Well, you say because you turned me on to this.
A wise man, a wise man changes his mind often, a fool never.
Interesting. So like now, if you look at what's happening in the world, if people did something back in the 70s and 80s, and especially around anything to do with race, and it was inappropriate back then, that's true, and now you've changed your mind, that's perfectly fine. But please, don't then expect that for some reason is that you've now got to atone for what you did back then. You didn't do it with any maliciousness, because sometimes when people say things to you, especially around the kind of the plant-based stuff, I realised that I went into it, I found it interesting, and then actually there was a lot of me got off on the fact that I could do it for so long. And I realised I was doing it probably for all the wrong reasons. I was doing it because I thought, well, look at this, it's another thing that's difficult that I can do. Ego's getting involved. You're drinking, you're getting up to a year now, how excited are you getting to a year?
V?
You're very excited, and it's a big deal, and it should be applauded as a big deal. But then if the only reason you are staying off that drink after 12 months is because you said you would, and if your viewpoints change, you have to experiment and think about that as well.
The only reason I would stay off the drink for even longer is because I have a fear of going back to it. There's some fear of going back to it. I've never said I was going to stop for a year. Nobody's even remotely interested in how long I've stopped, apart from you.
So if you have that fear of what, because you're remembering now what it used to be like when you went over the top, then that's a very good reason to not do it, to just keep going and continue, because it don't feel like, that's why I don't drink. I don't drink now because I don't think, I'd like a drink. It don't cross my mind very often. What I will say is, I know without any question there is an absolute benefit to me making this choice not to drink alcohol. There are so many benefits to the.
But there's benefits in everybody not having a drink.
We're not talking everybody here, because you can't talk about everybody. Because again, this is what's happened sometimes. People talking away about us, all collective. Everything comes down to your own personal choices. If you choose to drink or not drink, that's your own personal choice. The idea of talking in a way where we talk about collectives, it's dangerous, because you don't get outdone. How many people do we know that you'll have heard them say, I'm here to change the world? People that change the world will change nothing if they have the desire to change the world. You do your own bit, and eventually doing that thing you do might help somebody, and it might change the world in a small way. But when people set these impossible targets, that's why it's really easy to walk around with a placard saying, climate change, climate change. Well, what are you going to really do? Do you think 1 minute that all of a sudden, hang on, there's Boris Johnson or the people in government sat there thinking, interesting, what's that noise outside? What noise? Can you hear them? Get rid of the petrol, get rid of the petrol. Oh, it's them activists. Really? Yeah. What they're talking about now? We shouldn't be using petrol. Let's get rid of cars. It's a really good idea. Tell them to go home, we're getting rid of cars. Activists have never done anything. Yeah, there's probably a few that have. I'm sure the suffragettes did a bit. The point I'm making is you end up doing more with your behaviour, and then that's all you can control. But when we get fixated on trying to create somebody else's behaviour and make them live in a certain way or do a certain thing, unfortunately, that's got a negative effect, because nobody wants to be told what to do. We have to come to our own realisations about anything. My realisation at the moment is I am feeling not comfortable anymore continuing to say doggedly that I don't eat meat. I think I have to give myself permission now to say, if it feels right and it's appropriate and it feels like something I want to explore, I should do that. Regardless of whether that gives people a chance to, aha, told you so, or somebody like you leaving me thinking, oh, well, it's not what I want to do. I can't do something because you don't want to do it.
No, you can't, and I certainly wouldn't do something just because you wanted to do it.
Because this is what people do in relationships. They end up, if they're not careful, compromising to a point where you end up doing what the other person does just because you want to keep them happy, but you're not keeping yourself happy doing it.
No, I don't think it's a sacred. There's no we meet or we don't. We can both do our own thing. I'm sure you'd be quite happy to eat plant-based when you're at home and I'm making something.
Yeah, but again, this is almost it's a hypothetical question at the moment, because it may never happen. Because I am careful now that I've got to admit I'm not making the decision until I'm 100% crystal clear, and I'm not 100% crystal clear. Because until I won't move forward with it. And I think you can't move forward with changes in your lifestyle until you are 100% crystal clear. So even if you're contemplating now stopping going off meat and going all plant-based, consider what that looks like. If it's just an experiment for so many weeks, fine. But if you're considering to make a significant lifestyle change, you have to spend some time questioning the whys and wherefores of it. People don't do that enough. So they end up going into something half-cocked, they don't really understand what it is, they set themselves impossible tasks, and then when we set an impossible task and we fail, we end up beating ourselves up. And that's the kind of, if you like, the inner saboteur coming out. Set yourself an impossible target, push on and do it, then you'll fail, and then I'll laugh at you. That's what the inner saboteur does.
Yeah.
Well, you do it yourself.
Go on.
You must have set yourself impossible tasks in the time.
Oh, I'm not very competitive. I can't think of it.
No, it's not something about competitive tasks. You set yourself some things to do sometimes, ways of behaving and doing stuff. Like, right. The conversation sometimes when you'll say things like, we're sat at home and I'm not eating any sugar and we're not eating out in the house, we're keeping really clean. And you come back and say, I had a Whisper bar yesterday, or I got a chocolate bar at shop. So we end up doing things sometimes in a slightly clandestine way.
Well, first of all, I told you, and secondly, I don't think I've ever said I'm never eating any chocolate again.
No, we all set ourselves tasks that are impossible. And sometimes an impossible task can be impossible with time. They don't make sense time-wise, or they don't make sense financially. And we keep them in our mind as something, and then when we don't achieve them, we start to feel bad. So somebody else said, this time next year, I'm going to be
A millionaire.
Yeah, but if let's say you set that
Rodney.
target, let's just say you set that target this time next year, I'm going to be a millionaire. Is that achievable? Could you be a millionaire in 12 months' time?
I'm sure some people will be.
I'm sure many people could. But if you set yourself that target and you don't then think about it first, think about the practicalities, think about the actions you need to take to get to be that millionaire in 12 months' time, then all you are in 12 months' time is disappointed. And if you have enough of this disappointment, then you start to have a lack of faith in yourself. And you don't trust yourself anymore, you're not reliable. And I think this is a cycle that people get into, of taking something on, not thinking it through, or starting something and stopping it and not thinking through stopping it. I'm on this streak run, like I say, with me running, and there's a bit of me just doesn't want to stop doing it. I want to keep going every day. I haven't set this target. I set the
For
target.
how long?
I don't know.
Ever?
I don't know whether it's forever. But there's a bit of me is reluctant to stop. And I'm not talking about as in never run again. I'm saying about I'm reluctant to take a day off. And I find that interesting. Why is this the case? And I need to at some point give myself permission to have a day off. I ache today. I've got an ache in top of my knee. I've run now for. Bear in mind, it's not like I've run for 110 days. I've ran nearly 200 times this year so far, and we're on day 180 something. So I've averaged more than one run a day all year. I'm not taking any days off on average. I've had some days off, but on the days I took off, I did 2 more the day after, because that I don't know why, for no reason. I set myself a target to 1,000 miles. As of now, I'm 10 short of 800, with how many months left? I'm getting to a stage now, I only have to walk to the end of the street every day and I'd do 1,000 miles. So all of a sudden, the target to 1,000 miles, which was practical, sensible, what's it turned into now?
An obsession.
So you have to question these things that are going on. Why are we doing them? Do they make sense now? The same reasons for doing them, and do they still apply now as when you took them on? Do you feel there's some health benefit to continuing it that is greater than the health benefit to stop doing it? And this is something I think is more common than you might think. If we're not careful, we end up dragging ourselves into this routine of setting ourselves up for failure and then causing ourselves to stop doing something, all because we didn't step back and take a bit of time to look at them. So I think on reflection, if you think you are doing something that could be improved or you want to try something different, you just have to give yourself permission to do that, and that's okay. Like, some people should give themselves permission to fail. If you gave yourself permission to fail at stuff rather than trying to be perfect at everything, how much pressure would that take off your life? The permission to fail, the permission to change your mind. But you have to give yourself permission to do it, because if you don't give yourself permission to do it, and then you do it, it's like you didn't have permission to do it and you're going to feel guilty about it. What are you doing?
Going like little threads off my
There'll be
leggings.
hair sticking through your leggings.
They're
Have
not
you shaved your
hairs.
legs recently?
They're not
You
hairs.
should do. Anyway, that's it. So we've talked an hour about that.
I thought I was getting on a bit.
Right, look. Quick, what's else happened this week? We do the week that was. What's happened the last 7 days of interest?
What's happened 7 days? Well, this sounds really boring. I don't know. It's just been kind of one of those weeks that's been and gone.
Well, hang on a minute. You do a little bit of hairdressing.
I do a little bit of hairdressing.
And you did, you've got these clients from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And you did a lot of them on Saturday.
I did. I went round to saw them all, changed their lives for them. They were so happy to see me. In fact, they were happier to see me than seeing their own grandchildren.
Is that what they said?
Yeah.
I'd believe that.
If they had a choice, the grandchildren or me, it were me on Saturday.
And I remember, because I went out walking on Saturday.
You did?
Went out with Rianne, our little chum, and took her walking around Meltham. And you went walking. So I went walking. It was quite a tough walk and quite cold. You did the hairdressing.
I did.
Then we kind of came back home and fell into some kind of coma. So it's amazing how you getting out
We were
again.
like, oh, a full day's work.
Well, you were excited. You were really excited about it. You were
Yeah,
genuinely
but
excited.
I was excited to see people that I've known a long time. Because people that don't know me, who've just kind of listened to these podcasts, I used to be a hairdresser and have a hair salon for many, many, many years. Not for the last 17 years, but before that for many years. And I just kept a few clients because they were friends, and I have still got most of those clients. Handful, I don't know, 10 of them. And so I've known them a long time, and they are friends, and they all missed me, and I missed them as well.
So you did that. The lobby's nearly getting finished. There's a little lobby project
Yeah,
continues.
we had a bit of a setback with an electrician.
Well, let's not talk about the setback. Let's talk about what actually did happen.
He didn't come.
No, because that was only one part of the job that because we finished off all the woodwork this week.
Oh, we did, yes.
We had your son-in-law come round, Roberto.
Oh, he did a cracking job.
And he put up all this, like a little picture frame properly attached to a
Yeah,
wall.
he did the skirting board.
All skirting board, this little mitre saw and that, and glued it all on, so that's looking great. So the project's a bit near. We're near to having a nigh on perfect
porch decor.
decor.
Hashtag porch decor.
I've invested in some more wet weather running gear. I've got some fantastic trousers turned up this morning, actually, which I ordered, which to keep me waterproof, which I'm interested about, to be trying. And what else went on this week? Did we do anything else of interest? Nothing's about it, isn't it? We had a fairly quiet week. You've got a few more yoga classes. Didn't you do another class for somebody new?
Well, yeah, that was a couple of weeks ago. I think yesterday was the third week.
Right, so you're on with your new
third
client.
week.
So all in all, relatively quiet week. I think we're all feeling, I don't know about you, but I'm certainly feeling like the world's back to some kind of normality. It's been interesting to go. I went to the White Rose Shopping Centre yesterday. And I've not been there since March.
For me, there's been a huge disappointment with the shops opening.
Oh, they have. I was surprised. I mean, I think we said we'd never go back. I went down there to meet my daughter works at Marks and Spencer's, and I went to pick her up. And while I got down there early, so I thought I'll just wander down White Rose and see what it's like. It was a really weird experience because you had to follow these arrows about. And it's amazing how many people couldn't seem to follow the arrows. I mean, the point, we all know what an arrow is. You don't have to read to be able to see an arrow. It points in one direction. I think, you kind of guess you follow it. I found it very strange. Not unpleasant in some ways because there was less people there. But I didn't enjoy the experience. I found it very... I found it strange.
Shopping for me was a little bit of a hobby. And I like to go shopping with my daughter. Not often. 2 or 3 times a year. Go into the Leeds, have my hair cut. Then a couple of hours shopping every 2 months. So it wasn't a big deal. But it was shopping without any of the pleasure.
Yeah. Well, when you say the pleasure way, it's quite a grim experience, isn't it?
It's a horrible experience, and I will wait until things are back to normal, which will probably be next year now. We'll see.
Well, we also had our first bit of a family gathering. We had a few people together for a barbecue. Your sisters for her birthday. Your sisters were 55 years old.
They were. My twin sisters.
Twin sisters.
So they were both the same age.
And so we went there. So that was nice to have a bit more of a kind of, again, all socially distanced.
Yeah, but we put my poor mother about 3 metres away in a corner because she's getting on a bit.
Any further away, she'd been sat in the next garden. That's how far away your mother was.
So we did sort of coax her out a little bit.
Out. So that was interesting. So I'll say we've not had a bad week, really, have we?
No.
At least we haven't done much. We've done quite a bit.
Yeah.
We always do. Sometimes you forget.
I suppose you look at people that have really exciting lives and go different places. Perhaps not so much at the moment. And it's like, my life's not quite like that.
Oh, well, life's really interesting. It's always interesting to me anyway. So that's it, really. So I hope you've enjoyed that little conversation on permission to change. If you think you need to change, give yourself permission.
You ring me up and ask me. I'll give you permission.
Yeah, we'll give you permission.
Just ring us up.
Don't ring us up. We don't want people ringing us. Email us.
Can I have permission to have a drink?
Permission no, you can't. So we hope you enjoyed that. And like I say, we'll maybe talk about this in another podcast, my journey into where I am with my diet shortly. So, But at the moment, I'm still 90% plant-based.
Are you still on the fence?
Fish. I'm on the fence. But
looking over.
We'll see. We'll see if anything happens before next week. I'll make the announcement if it happens. So anyway, there you go. So we're coming up to the 19th very shortly. So as I say, we've a lot to do on Better 7. That's what we're doing next. So we hope you enjoyed the podcast. Like I say, if you are used to watching this on YouTube and you're seeing a picture of a squiggly line and a picture and not me and Sue, I hope you understand why. We just need these to be a little bit more kind of fluid and I think we've achieved that today. It feels better doing it this way. It feels much more comfortable. So I'm sorry you're disappointed we're not seeing our smiling, happy little faces.
They won't be remotely disappointed.
No, they won't. But it'll make our lives easier. So thank you for watching, and until the next podcast,
take care.
Take care.